Joining me now is Ed Gillespie, former chairman of the Republican National Committee and counselor to President George W. Bush, and now board member of Resurgent Republic, a conservative polling and advocacy group. And Ed, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me on.
Well, I understand that there are even more red flags for Democrats, Ed. What did Resurgent Republic learn from focus groups in key swing states?
Well, a couple of things. These focus groups were largely of independent voters who had voted for President Obama in 2008 but are undecided on the presidential election for 2012. And what we found in talking to them is that they're very concerned about the spending that's going on in Washington. They're not in favor of a blank check when it comes to raising the debt ceiling. They want to see reforms made and spending cuts made before any increase in the debt ceiling. They don't want to see us just business as usual, raise the debt ceiling again, and they see it as a huge disconnect between Washington, D.C. and their daily lives. As more than one actually said, when I run up against the limit on my credit card, I don't just get to say, well, I'm going to increase the limit on my credit card by $2,000. I have to cut back on my spending and change my habits in order to accommodate that. In Washington, they don't seem to have that kind of play by those kind of rules. So it was very frustrating to these voters.
Now, based on your findings, will this struggling economy with high unemployment then doom President Obama's re-election bid? Is his defeat all but certain?
I think it's going to be very difficult for President Obama to be reelected. These independent voters don't go so far as most Republicans do, as to say that the president has made the economy worse. Remember, these are folks who had voted for him before and are undecided on the presidential ballot, so they're not ready to blame him for making things worse. They do, however, recognize that he hasn't made things better, whereas I would attribute it and other conservatives would attribute the problems in our economy to his policies, the wasted stimulus money, the excessive stifling regulations in the Dodd-Frank bill and other proposals to regulate energy. The onerous mandate in the health care bill on employers to provide for small businesses in particular. I attribute those things to making the economy worse. These independent voters don't go so far as to say that. They see it more as sins of omission, that he took his eye off the ball and hasn't focused on the economy. And they see it as a failure of leadership in many ways. That's a real danger sign for any president when some of your even past voters think that maybe you're in over your head, and we saw that in these focus groups. Now,
the clock is ticking toward that August 2nd deadline over whether to raise the debt ceiling, and Democrats are beating up Republicans for refusing to raise the ceiling. Who's winning the debate here, and should Republicans stand their ground on the tax issue or compromise here?
Well, the president has been hammering Republicans for not going along with raising taxes on those who are the innovators in our economy, small business owners. In most recoveries, small businesses lead the way out in terms of job creation. 2/3 of new jobs created in our economy tend to come from small businesses. And these are the very people that President Obama is proposing to hit with a major tax increase in exchange for raising the debt ceiling. And what the Republicans are saying is, our problem with a debt ceiling is all the excessive spending. We've got to get control of spending. Raising taxes is only going to encourage more spending in Washington, D.C., not discourage it. And I think Republicans are right. And what I've seen in not only these recent focus groups by Resurgent Republic, but in quantitative data, nationwide surveys, people support the notion of getting control of spending and using the debt ceiling to do that, or not raising it at all. I think most Republicans in Congress realize we should raise the debt ceiling, not default, but in order to get there, we need to use this opportunity to affect behavioral change in Washington, D.C. It can't be business as usual.
Resurgent Republic's focus groups found that, as you said, that independents did not specifically hold Obama or his policies responsible for the current state of the economy. You also found that there was little knowledge among voters of the current debate over Medicare taking place in Washington, an issue that might have hurt Republicans in a recent special election in New York. What should the GOP's strategy be then as it relates to independents as we move toward 2012?
Well, it was surprising to me that there was so little penetration of the Medicare debate that has been a focal point in Washington, D.C. and inside the Beltway. But outside the Beltway, even with senior citizens in Florida, one of the groups was with seniors in Florida, they had a sense that there was a problem with Medicare and potentially going bankrupt. Although most of these voters don't believe that it will go bankrupt. They think that Washington and politicians won't allow that to happen. You have to take it to another level and say, well, in order for it not to happen, you're going to have massive tax increases or deep cuts in benefits for beneficiaries unless you make reforms. And they understood it at that point, but there was little awareness of the Ryan budget that gets so much focus inside the Beltway and in the the Washington media. So I think there's an opportunity here for Republicans to begin to educate. The truth is, even in these debt ceiling talks, President Obama yesterday, after having claimed that the Obamacare bill was going to restore Medicare's solvency, he acknowledged yesterday that it's going to go bankrupt. And that's helpful, the fact that the president now is using the bully pulpit to make clear that without reforms, Medicare will go bankrupt. That should help the voters become a little more aware of the imminent crisis in the Medicare program, and I think make them more open to looking at changes like the reforms proposed in the Ryan plan.
Should Republicans continue to make a huge issue out of Obamacare?
Well, what we found is that, again, with independent voters, and again, these are folks who are favorably disposed, even not only did they vote for, most of these independent voters vote for President Obama in 2008, a majority of them still had a favorable view of his job approval, which is at odds with the majority of Americans today who disapprove of President Obama's job. But what we found with these independent voters is that they thought that the focus on health care by President Obama in the first 2 years of his time in office was a distraction from focusing on creating jobs and the economy. And they would see a focus in repealing Obamacare by Republicans as a distraction from focusing on jobs and the economy. So that's at odds with where most Republicans are. Most Republicans vigorously believe that we should repeal and replace Obamacare, and there's a lot of intensity around the issue. But it also points to the need for Republican candidates to educate voters that there's a direct connection between the enactment of the Obama health care bill and its punitive mandate and job-killing impact of that. And that's why we need to repeal it. If we repeal Obamacare, we will help unleash job creation in the economy, but we need to make that connection more clear to those independent voters.
Ed, does the GOP hold the House and win the Senate?
I believe both. I believe that the Republicans will win the House. We're benefited from having control of the redistricting process in a lot of states. A group I chair, the Republican State Leadership Committee, had a very good year in helping to elect state legislators in the State House and the State Senate, and flipped 23 chambers since last year, have changed from Democratic to Republican. That gives us the pen in drawing the district lines for new congressional districts. That'll be advantageous to helping us hold the House majority. And in the Senate, Democrats have to defend 23 seats, many of them in very difficult territory, and they have opened up seats, which is the biggest opportunity for gains for a party to make is in open Senate seats. So I believe we'll also win the Senate. In fact, I believe in January of 2013, Republicans will be in control of the House, the Senate, and the White House.
A trifecta.
Yeah, I think that's right, and I think it shows you where the country is. There, a lot of people who voted, and these independent voters in 2008, they thought they were voting to change Washington. They didn't think they were voting to change America. That's what they got with Barack Obama, and they're disconcerted by that right now, and they don't want to bust loose from our free market principles and moorings and individual liberty principles that the founders established this country on. And I think that there's going to be a pretty strong swing back more to the center toward the right by the electorate next November.
All right, Ed Gillespie, thanks so much for being here. If folks want to learn more about Resurgent Republic, where should they go?
ResurgentRepublic.com, and it's a very interesting and informative website.
All right, Ed Gillespie, thanks so much.
Thank you.